What is up, YouTube? Zuki1 here, and I am back with a brand new YouTube video. Today we are going to be continuing our Slay the Spire tier list video with us talking about the elites. These guys are supposed to be equivalent to a Slay the Spire boss, which is why you only see so little of them. There's a total of 9 elites that you can go against, 3 in each section of the game. So for instance, in the Act 1 you get 3 elites, Act 2 you get 3 elites, and then Act 1 you get 3, 2 you get 3, and then Act 3 you get 3. That's why my brain. Anywhoosies. So we're going to be placing the ones that I think are some of the strongest, the most annoying, ones that you just simply do not want to deal with at all. They're just not fun to fight against in the slightest. They are extremely challenging, and you have to come at them with a lot of thought process. So without further ado, let's get on with the list. The first person we're going to put up here is our boy, Mr. Big Head. Now, I know some of you guys might feel like, damn, that's kind of harsh, but let me explain. This elite, from my experience and a lot of other people's experience, from what I've seen on streams and other highlights and stuff like that, no one has ever struggled against this elite. Actually, a lot of people, especially in Act 3, look forward to going against him because he's just a big meat sponge that does like 13 damage a turn, and then he like lowers your defense, and he gives you a whole 4 turns before he actually starts hitting you hard. Like, this is Act 3, so at this point you expect to get your shit rocked, and he's not doing nothing. Your deck is so powerful by this point with literally any character that doing 13 damage a turn really isn't doing much. Obviously, once you get to once you ascend further, he might become a little bit more of a challenge, but even with those higher ascensions, he still is a lackluster elite in terms of difficulty. You just whoop his ass, get a free relic, move on with your day. Honestly speaking, I feel like he's probably the only one that deserves to be here. Everybody else is a very good elite. He's the only one on this list that I honestly feel is just free. Like, every time I see that nigga, I'm happy as hell, because I know for a fact it's a free relic. I've never lost to that thing. Knock on wood. But yeah, I've never lost to that thing in any of my runs. When I get him, I've gotten him like 2 or 3 times in a single run, and I beat him both 2 or 3 times just collecting free relics. So that was the first time I found out that you can have over like 20 relics or some shit like that. I was like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. But I kept getting free shit just because I kept whooping his ass. But anywho's, I'm not going to waste too much time on talking about why this guy is so free. I'm pretty sure if you guys played the game, you can pretty much agree with me on that one. The guy is pretty free. He doesn't really offer too much of a challenge, so it is what it is. Now, in terms of challenging people, elites, but are not game breaking, are definitely these guys right here. I can't remember their names of the elites, so excuse me on that part. But with these characters, if you don't know, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to kill one of the outside towers first, or whatever the fuck they're called. You're supposed to kill the one on the outsides first, and then work your way on the inside. For the longest of time, I used to try to kill the one that was in the middle, and then allow the other 2 to keep being in sync with each other, because the 2 on the outside are in sync. So they're both gonna put those days in your deck, or they're both going to attack you at the same time. If you kill one of the ones on the outside first, it alternates between which one's going to put the daze in there and which one's going to put the which one's going to attack you, which gives you more time to actually think and plan out your line of attack. So instead of having to block 18 damage each turn, you only have to block 9 damage each turn. You see what I'm saying? So it's a challenge for sure, especially if you didn't know that little tidbit right there. But it's not the end of the world. Even if you didn't know that tidbit and you just focused on the one that's in the middle, it still doesn't change the aspect of how you go about beating them. They can be pretty difficult depending on how much life you have when you go against them, and they can also be pretty difficult depending on what you have in your deck already. So if you don't have enough damage or enough guarding in your deck already, you're just gonna have a difficult time against this elite. I honestly feel like. That being said, I don't feel like it's the worst, but it's definitely something that can be pretty challenging if you bump into it at the wrong time of your gameplay, right? So moving on to the next one, we are going to. So I feel like these two are probably going to be the only representatives for each one of those things. Everybody else is going up into another section. So we're gonna put Mr. Stabby Boy in real tough. So why is he real tough? The problem is with this character is that if this elite does any damage to you, any damage, even the slightest, like even one tick of damage, he puts a status card in your deck. I can't think of what it's called right now. I'll put it up on the screen a little bit later. It's the one with the little bleeding face. But if he does even a tick of damage to you, he puts that card into your deck. Into your discard pile first, but you have to shuffle it. He has a pretty decent health pool, and he hits for quite a bit of damage. So he's not challenging in the sense that he's going to change up his strategy that much, because he's just going to constantly just keep stabbing you over and over again. It's more of the fact that you always have to try to block his damage completely, otherwise he's going to put status effects in there. And the more damage he does to you, like per stab, the more status effects that he put into your deck. So if he hits you for 2, 3, 4 times in a single turn, even if you survive it, he's putting in cards that's going to make your deck less effective. And those cards don't leave your deck, unfortunately, right? Those cards are stuck in there. They're not ethereal, or they're not the ones that once you get them, they just evaporate. No, they are there. So you have to kill him the first time before you shuffle your deck, which sometimes can be pretty hard because you might not be able to pump out the damage needed to kill him. He is an Act 3 elite, so it can be kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, you might be able to pump it out before it gets to the second rotation, like when you have to shuffle your deck, but it depends on the size of your deck. Also, some people I know like to run smaller decks, so like somewhere between 20 to 30 cards sometimes, and you can run through that within 5 turns, right? If you're running 20 cards, that's 4 turns. So in 4 turns, if you didn't block all that damage, you're shuffling in the status card that he put into your deck, and that'll make your turns even longer and draw out the fight. And the reason why in Slay the Spire you want to try to end the fights as quickly as possible is because you do not want to drag those fights out, because it only gets worse for you once you go past that one difficult fight. Because once you beat that, you might go against some fucking little slug worms, the dudes from Act 1, and you lose. And obviously I'm not saying in the sense like you don't fight against that in Act 3, but the point is that creatures that you fight against later on do prove to be very difficult. And if you struggle against this elite to finish him off in a timely manner without getting a whole lot of status effects in there or shuffling your deck yet, then it can be pretty challenging. It can be pretty rough. I would definitely admit that. So definitely somebody that you don't want to bump into right away if you're not prepared to block a lot of damage in or deal enough damage within a short period of time to be able to, you know, just keep moving past it, because otherwise the rest of your run is going to be very difficult, especially if that's the first elite that you go against. All right, next on the list we have Big Red Boy. Big Red Boy is pretty much in the same category of the Stabby dude. The reason why he's not the reason why he is difficult, right, is because he's an Act 1 guy, so you don't really have a deck. Most of your deck is pretty much just strikes and defense. So when you activate a skill while he's in his rage form, he gives himself +2 damage. And the higher ascensions, the more difficult he can become. So, I don't know, let's say you're on Ascension 5 or something like that. This guy is a fucking powerhouse and a fucking nightmare to see. And that at that level, right? Even in the early stages, like even in Ascension 0, he's still really difficult to fight against because he's dealing a lot of damage. There are times where you legit just have to pass your turn because you have a handful of defense, or you just don't have anything that you can activate where you don't want to give him more damage to hit you with. Because eventually he's just going to start hitting you like he already hit you kind of like a grown man. There are turns where he goes for like skull bash and just hit you on the, hit you for 6 damage. But then there's other times where he comes at you and swing for like 28 in Act 1. How you supposed to block 28 damage in Act 1 without activating any skills? You see what I'm saying? Like, this guy is tough. He's really tough. And he's mad annoying to go against. I hate going against this guy. He is like one of the most annoying elites I go against. He can definitely end your run pretty quickly if you don't have the right skill sets and stuff like that. I know for a fact he's eating up at least about 20 to 25 of my health. Sometimes even more, depending on the character and stuff like that. Because a lot of characters, again, like I said, need to use their skills. And he prevents you from activating those without worry, right? So he's a really annoying elite. Definitely a real tough challenge, but again, not impossible to beat. The next one we're gonna put on this list is another Act 1 elite. We're gonna put him right here, the Coon dude. I don't know his name, but the Coon dude is pretty difficult, and sometimes it might even be good to use a smoke bomb to escape the fight, because he does 18 damage every single turn around like Ascension 1, Ascension 0, Ascension 1, and Ascension 2. Well, no, Ascension 2 he's dealing more damage, and then so on and so forth, right? So that's one thing. But outside of the consistent damage that he's pumping out, right, like it doesn't alternate, he also puts a status effect that lowers your damage permanently and lowers your defense permanently, obviously for the duration of that fight, but still, right, dealing 1 less damage and blocking for 1 less damage every single turn that he decides to do that is pretty detrimental. I mean, you might have the cards to be able to beat him, but dealing less damage means that you are fighting him longer. Remember, the goal of these elites isn't for you to die to them for most of the time. It's just to make you take as much damage as possible to ruin your run. A lot of times, a lot of these enemies don't really have the goal of beating you. They don't think that they're going to beat you. They're polygons and pixels, so obviously they might actually think that they can beat you. But the point is that these characters are really just there as a barrier to prevent you from going forward, right? They want to prevent you from getting to the point where you can just outright just, run through everything, get to the end, and then just keep running through shit, right? These elites are, again, supposed to be a challenge. They're supposed to be difficult. They're supposed to eat up a lot of your health. So that way it makes the run that much more difficult and that much more thought-provoking. You have to think about everything that you're doing before you go forward. Do I have enough health to fight against this elite? can I mitigate the amount of damage that I'm about to engage with this elite before I begin my journey, right? These are little factors that you have to consider when you go into a run, and I feel like this guy is one of those guys that you just hate to see. There are just times where you bump into him and you're like, I don't have it, and he just ends your run, right? And you know, outside of the consistent damage, like I stated before, you also got to deal with the fact that he's nagging you on damage and everything else. So he can be pretty challenging and can definitely end your runs and just not fun to deal with. Now, on to the next elite, we got little Reaper Boy. So we got one of the most annoying elites in the game. You go against them in Act 3, so obviously at that point in time, you're supposed to be raw as hell. But the guy has the ability to become intangible. If you guys are not familiar what intangible is, that is essentially where you reduce all damage that you would take to 1. So for instance, when you go against certain creatures, they deal like massive amount of damage, and depending on the character that you're picking. Myself, I play the Watcher a lot. She's the mage right here that I play quite frequently, right? She has a form in the game called Wrath. When you go into the Wrath form, you double whatever damage you're going to take. So if he was going to hit me for 35 damage, it becomes 70 damage. And if you have intangible, that 70 damage just becomes 1. So every turn, he alternates back and forth between giving you status effects and then also dealing just high amounts of damage. Now, in the turns that he's dealing high amounts of damage, he's vulnerable. But when he's putting on status effects, majority of the time, he is in an intangible state. So you deal 1 damage to him. So it's a very challenging boss in the sense that sometimes you have to reserve certain cards to wait for turns when he's tangible, right? When you can get in his ass. Like that shaman, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, the guy can be pretty hard. The intangibility makes it very hard to deal with at times, and he hits pretty hard as well, like I stated before. Outside of that, the status effects that he does put on you are also a nuisance to the point where it just makes it an extremely difficult elite to fight against if you're not properly prepared, if you don't have enough health, or if you just don't know how to deal with his intangibility, right? So definitely worthy of the spot of smoke bomb if you just don't want to deal with that, swapping back and forth between attack status, intangibility, untangible, and you know, stuff like that. So definitely a worthwhile character to throw a smoke bomb, run away from, and just don't deal with his gerbil. Alright, so now we're on the most difficult elites. They're all pretty similar in the sense of why they in your runs. So I'm gonna just put all of them up here and just explain why they're there. They have minions. It's not just a 1v1 fight. Every single other elite is a 1v1 fight. These 3 guys, these 3 assholes right here, they all have 2 to 3 people that you gotta fight against. The snake bitch, she starts off with 2s, and then it becomes 3 if you don't kill the other 2 knives that turn. And they deal like 30 damage on the second turn. And they just blow themselves up into you. Not fun to deal with. And plus she hits you hard as fuck too. And she can constantly keep spawning her minions over and over again. So if you don't deal with those little things, they're just gonna constantly keep fucking you up. And she puts status effects on you. Like, it's one thing for you to have an endless supply of minions, but it's a whole nother to also be able to put status effects on me. Like, what? Why is that fair? That is not fair. That's not. It's just not. This guy right here, he has, again, minions, and those minions can be respawned for him, and he buffs his minions every single turn. So they get more damage, they get shields, they get and then if you kill them, he respawns them and stuff like that. So it's just ugh, you know, if you don't have any AoE attacks, you're gonna be taking some damage, right? At this point in the game, there's always definitely a necessary to have AoE attacks for these types of people. You're gonna go against multitude of enemies on the screen at once, so being able to deal damage to all of them at once is such a fucking you know, it's like, thank you, oh my god, I can kill both of these guys at the same time. So yeah, both of these two are very annoying to deal with, but this guy, this asshole, oh my god. Okay, where do I start? Okay, so these guys you fight in Act 2, so you might be in a good spot at this point in the game, right? You might have a pretty decent deck. You might be feeling like, I can deal with pretty much anything that I'm going against, right? There was plenty of runs where I had like a pretty decent amount of relics. I had an okay deck and stuff like that. I was feeling pretty good about my run, right? I went against this elite. The problem about this elite is that all three of them, there are 3 creatures. None of these are minions, by the way, so they don't come back. The problem is that they all hit you very, very hard at all turns. There are no turns where they don't hit you hard except like maybe the opening turn, but even on the opening turn, on Ascension 0 through 3, they dealing 33 damage. No, sorry. If you get to 2 or 3, they deal more, but like 0 and 1, they're dealing like 33 damage on turn 1. How the fuck am I supposed to deal with 33 damage on turn 1? And then the second turn, they're coming at you even harder, and that's if the last person in the, because there's again 3 of them, the last one has a status effect that prevents you from dealing any damage for that one turn. That one turn can be super detrimental because you could draw into all of your big damaging cards, and guess what? You can't play a single one of them. That's how I lost a lot of my runs, where I literally had the answers to be able to kill all of them, but I couldn't attack. So I lost. Go figure, right? And it just, oh my god, it literally made me want to pull my hair out. I was so mad because the run was going so good. I had so much stuff, and then they just killed me. They fucking killed me. Oh my god. And it was every single time I saw them. It was, oh my god, bro. But yeah, that is my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is part 2 of the series. We're gonna do the regular enemies next, and then for the end of the series, we're gonna cover relics. We're trying to keep it generic. We're not trying to go specifically into like characters, which one's better and stuff like that, because that's all arbitrary and things of that nature. Obviously, all of this shit is arbitrary. It's all my personal opinion and stuff like that. But you know, keeping it generic makes it easier for people to, you know, say like, oh yeah, I feel like this is better, this can do more and stuff like that. So if you guys have any different opinions, just leave them in the comments below. This has been Zuki1, and I hope you guys have a great morning, great evening, great afternoon, and great night. But I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace. Fire.